Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I am going to take it that some visuals have come up and you've seen why we're all here today. I'm going to assume we're live. I have a nod from everybody. Yes. Okay, great. Hello. Welcome to the Royal Television Society. Very, very special deep dive case study about AI and lockdown. This is an indie production company's innovation deep dive session into utilizing the time wisely, going through thousands and thousands of hours of footage and trying to find the best solutions for keep on keeping on in this crazy time that we call lockdown. My name is Muki-International. I'm an RTS regular host and a member, very proud member, and an executive XR producer, and also working on the IBC Accelerators program on two different AI case study proof of concepts within shot listing and content moderation. And very, very happy to be with our lovely, lovely panel and guests today from Arrow Media and Arrow International Media. And again, we're going to have if you'd like to ask questions, please go to the YouTube channel, ask the questions directly on there. We'll be getting them in all during the session. We're not going to wait till the very, very end. And if you want to be tweeting us, it's at RTS_London. And please use the hashtag RTSAI, which is specific to this session. So without further ado, a quick overview of Arrow Media. We know that these guys are world-class BAFTA, RTS winning. They've worked with pretty much every major broadcaster under the sun. As you can see, some visuals there from National Geographic, Apollo 11, Body Cam, America in Color, Extreme Rescues, Smithsonian, A Year of Murder, one of the very first companies to be working on the Disney Plus channel. And award-winning feature films include Sherpa, which captured a tragedy about the Everest forever, and Under the Wire, trips to Syria and UK and America and more. So in 2018, a couple of years back, they created two creative labels, Arrow Media and Arrow Pictures, to help fuel the company's growth. But today, again, we've got a bit of an all-star lineup of our Arrow International Media participants that are going to be here today to talk about their AI project, in which I believe we've got a vision. There we go. We've got Dan Carew-Jones, who's heading up the post-production as a consultant, Carrie Pennifer, our production executive, Karen Spears, post-production manager, and India Goss, the all-star runner who toiled with hours of her life to be going through some of this footage, even though we're talking about technology. So I'm going to throw to you first, Carrie. Welcome, first of all. Welcome to RTS. Hello. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about how this project came about. What was it like in lockdown and not being able to shoot anything, including drama, or access the edit suites? Like, we're all living this right now. So if you don't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit, kicking off the session about life in lockdown for Arrow.
Sure. Hello, Muki, and thank you for such a great introduction. I'm Carrie Pennifer, production executive at Arrow Media. And look, I think one of the things we're really good at in television is plan A, B, C, thinking about worst case scenario, reacting to things that go wrong that we haven't thought about. You know, we have power cuts, we lose days of an edit, we have planes that get delayed, we have contributors who pull out at the last minute, we have weather, we have political unrest. All these things happen to us, and we cope and we carry on. But they tend to happen in isolation to a particular production or on a particular shoot. But this thing was so big, I don't think anyone predicted it or, could have foreseen the effect that it was going to have on our industry and, every single industry and globally. This wasn't just here. So all of a sudden, not only are we not able to get people on planes to go and film the things they need to film, but we are all sent home. The edits are split apart in terms of you can't have your editors with your producers, so they're needing to find a way to work together creatively and editorially. Yeah. Aside from all the technology that's involved in, people having to suddenly work remotely. So, I mean, I'm talking to people who are all going through it.
Yes.
So I think you all understand the scale of what we were facing.
No, and was your initial reaction as a production executive, were you worried about those types of budgets. And obviously the number one priority is your colleagues' well-being and staying safe and healthy. Number one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it probably affected everyone on a number of levels. Personally, your own fear, you sort of become a bit of a child about it, and we've all seen the disaster movies. And then on a professional level, you begin to think, well, how big is this thing? And I think one of the scariest things is that we had no idea how long this was going to last, and with a lot of these other problems, they tend to be finite and you can see a way out. And we still don't know. It's ongoing.
Exactly. And then over to you, Karen, about, if you don't mind introducing yourself, please, and telling us about how, obviously you probably had many discussions with Carrie about what do we do next, and going from not 12 but 20 episodes, right, to building like trying to find where those holes were in the different series, and how do you meet your deadlines suddenly when you can't be at an edit suite, and dealing with like GVs and shots and shot lists that you weren't expecting.
Sure, thank you. And again, thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, as my name's Kieran Spears, and I look after post-production over at Arrow Media. Yeah, as Carrie was saying, obviously a big pandemic happened, as we all know. We had many shows still in the edit, still editing. So our first challenge was obviously to move all of the edits out remotely, and then after that we needed to have a system in place and a workflow to make sure that we could carry on delivering these shows and carrying on completing the edits. Like you say, we couldn't film, so we realised we had a huge database and library of existing media that we'd use from past series for many shows, for especially with a lot of our discovery content for the shows we were doing. So Dan very smartly found, and I know he'd been talking to them for many moons regarding other matters, but puts in contact with Grey Meta. So obviously we first was in the edit, of course, and so we had all the editors working away, having interviews and then carry on. But obviously we needed lots of drama, so the edit would go around things. They would almost storyboard exactly what they needed, and they'd find, they'd cut as much as they can. And the most important thing was not just to fill gaps, but to keep the standard of television that we're delivering consistent, because
keep that high quality consistent.
Exactly, keep that high quality of consistency there was really important for us. So it wasn't just a case of plugging in black holes, is important. And also because some of the series that we was working on, we'd already filmed some of the drama, so it would be a bit weird that halfway through the series to have this quality drop. So maintaining that standard was extremely important. But luckily, having Grey Meta and this AI technology introduced to us really helped us to whittle down the type of shots we need. So the editors would go about and find an establisher, like, I need a Zoom meeting with 5 participants talking about Grey Meta. So you type in Zoom, 5 people, and then that. Yeah, I know, it's a bit spooky what's happening, but so we'd find that main sort of story that we was looking for, and then we'd get all of the rushes. So it very quickly helped us to identify if it existed and where it was. And then we could go, luckily we've got a fantastic library system at Arrow, so we'd go to drives or to LTOs, we'd retrieve that data, and all of the footage that was shot around that day, we'd transcode it all into the edit, and then we'd see if that was useful to what they were trying to achieve. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
It sounds like an all hands on deck situation. You're kind of scrambling to keep the boat afloat. So kind of a nice segue over to you, Dan, just to kind of explain how you got this dream team together and utilized resource from around the company to try to dive into your archive.
Sure. I'm Dan Carew-Jones, and I'm a post-production consultant. Worked with Arrow for longer than I like to remember. But the essential opportunity was that we had a massive library of footage to exploit. The series that we were primarily dealing with were returning series, so we probably had, in total, we probably had 5,000 or 6,000 hours worth of footage that we could possibly exploit. And obviously, step number one was to drag India into a room with several other people and say, can you just log this 5,000 hours of footage, please? And we need it next week. And so after a very brave effort from India to start that logging process, before we considered the AI, to be fair, because it was just the most immediate way that we could think of making this footage available in a sensible sort of way. And at that point, we probably spent, well, I'll let India describe how long she spent logging footage. I would add quite a lot of it is quite, is dark footage as well. It's not
right. So sounds like a painful process even under normal logging circumstances. But hello, India. Welcome. Welcome. Would you like to kind of is it going to be too painful to relive those logging moments? Are you okay to share this story with us?
Fine. So my name's India. I'm a runner at Arrow. So I was brought on by Dan and Carrie to work amongst a team of others to tag footage on Limecraft with keywords describing the shot, whether it was day or night, whether it was GoPro footage or what kind of footage it was, describe the location, and just name anything in the scene. And I had to do that for about 3 series, I think. And then, as you can imagine, this was quite time-consuming and laborious, but it was strangely rewarding, and it got quite therapeutic at times.
Was it?
Yeah,
how was that?
It was quite therapeutic, but it took a lot of time. And we deal with requests that would come in via an online request form from directors and editors, and we would search on Linecraft to find these clips and send them over. Some requests are very simple, generic police drama segments, which we have a lot of in the archive, such as a take set playing or footsteps walking, but some were harder to find, such as place signs, or often we'd be asked for lookalikes, and having to trawl through footage to look for lookalikes is quite tedious, as you can probably imagine, but it took a lot of time.
And was it your first time using AI technology to log?
So yeah, no, I've never used anything like this grey matter before, or Linecraft even. So I'm completely new to all of that.
Was it easy what was that learning process like to try to quickly adapt in a short space of time?
I mean, grey matter is very simple to use, so it was quite easy. It's just a search engine. But in Linecraft, again, you're just sort of tagging keywords, which is quite simple. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I felt a bit of emotion going through like hours and hours and hours of footage with you there. So I mean, back over to you, Dan, as far as knowing that that would take months, and how did you try to meet those expectations of using some new technology and gaining the trust within Arrow?
Well, there were a couple of aspects really. When we started doing it, as India mentioned, we were using our Limecraft system, which is essentially a cloud logging and assembling tool that we use on a day-to-day basis anyway. And it became clear very quickly that the amount of footage that we were loading into Limecraft was going to streak ahead of our ability to log it in any sensible way. And we'd been talking to Grey Meta for probably a couple of years of talking about AI and how it might help us from sort of acquisition to delivery to archive, and how it can help us in our media management sort of processes and in our production processes. And we thought that, well, actually, this might be the ideal test case. Is an exaggeration, really. This is the ideal circumstances to actually try it in anger and actually get some results out of it.
Right.
And to be honest, we didn't go in with massively high expectations, which I think was a good way to go, because it's not something it's not a sort of on-off switch. It's not gonna give you everything immediately at 100% accuracy. It's going to assist you in the process of finding that footage. So it'll make finding that brilliant shot of an assault rifle or a brilliant shot of a a graveyard or something like that. It'll
Yeah.
help you find it, but it won't find it for you. And we went in with that sort of expectation rather than expecting it to, to send India off to do loads of other interesting things. But actually,
Right.
she had to stay around searching and still logging as we went through, as we'll talk about in the future, I expect.
Exactly. I mean, we all know that a lot of this, artificial intelligence, this type of tagging and searching and these technologies are not going to go away. So in a way, you had a little bit of internal R&D that was quite necessary, with a little bit of nothing to lose, I suppose, as far as integrating the Curio system. Were you guys the first company to start to really integrate the Curio system into some of your archive and the search and that process?
No, I think other companies are looking at it, but I think they're I think in general, from talking to Grey Matter, I mean, I might be talking out of schools, we might need to ask Grey Matter about this, but I think the other companies that are involved are bigger and possibly in the more sort of corporate commercial sort of field rather than the specialist factual area that we're in.
Right. Okay. I'd like to just we can have a little bit of a round table now. And we could put our hands up if we'd like to chip in. And again, for anyone watching this now, please throw in some questions on the YouTube channel. We'll integrate them as this discussion goes on rather than saving everything to the end. So I suppose that since the rushes were all kind of being digitized as web proxies, was it like, Kieran, I'm going to throw over to you in kind of a post-production way, that kind of the web proxies versus original productions and working a little bit more integrated into your cloud workflows, how did that make an impact on like old versus new, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So with our cloud-based system, as India and Dan was talking about, the Limecraft system, we tend to have everything we've ever shot. We essentially import into the cloud, and what it does is on import it transcodes it into low-res proxies. So using those, obviously the metadata is obviously very, very limited, but versus if you're using AI and you actually have the metadata of the camera, i.e. location, that's within the camera metadata, obviously using that type of metadata within the AI system is obviously can be really, really, really useful, especially if you're trying to find a location in California on a sunny day, to be able to type that in and know that it's going to pop up, where obviously going through a traditional cloud-based system that doesn't have that kind, unless we've input that type of data, manually input that into there, then obviously it's not going to be in there. So yeah, if that answers the
If I could just chip in, because I think
Sure.
the point where Arrow was meant that they were ideally placed to exploit these sort of systems, and there's plenty of them available. In that their footage was it was stored and it was available, so it wasn't hidden away in a cupboard on a drive somewhere in an office that you couldn't go into.
Right.
It was available in the cloud, either in proxy form or in its original form. So Arrow has sort of taken that first step towards using AI, machine learning, all sorts of other fantastic digital technologies that's either here or just around the corner. And so they were at a fairly advanced starting point to implement the system, and that was one of the attractions. And I think Kira mentioned earlier the library and the organization of that library meant that you could very easily cherry pick down to the individual camera cards which ones were most likely to give you good results in AI and were containing the sort of footage that we were looking for.
I mean, it would be good to kind of throw into that about a little bit more nitty gritty of how you did use the AI into the production, searching for that visual tags to kind of optimal character recognition and things like that. What were some of the challenges that kind of came about that you conquered?
Well, with the system that we were introducing, there's a huge variety of items that they can look for. And essentially our requirements were relatively basic in that we essentially wanted to know what was in these shots. So, Hero mentioned is if it was 5 people talking on a Zoom call, then we wanted to know that there was a shot with 5 people shooting on speaking on a Zoom call. and that essentially is the visual tagging element. But on the top of that, there's speech recognition, and the thing that probably I didn't think we'd really need initially, because of the nature of the footage we were looking at, was the optical character recognition, which was extracting data of script that is on the footage. So if something comes up as a church, if there's a sign saying such and such church, and you search for church, then you find that church because it's recognized the characters. And that actually proved quite valuable because it gave us a bit of location information, which potentially we didn't have from the camera metadata. I remember I think we were looking for, I can't remember which exact police department it was, but there was searching for a Monterey policeman or something like that, and we found a set of cards that had a police badge with the Monterey Police Department written on it, and it had recognized that. It goes into quite detailed level of recognition on that front. Speech recognition was great to have, but most of the stuff that we were looking for didn't have any sync audio.
So it's another transitional adaptation of the way we work now, I suppose, and using some old tools with the new tools into that. We do have a question from a fan or one of our RTS viewers. Mary Kay would like to know, did you get flash positives? Maybe that's Carrie.
That might be one for me. I think the whole point of the system is that you get false positives, I think is what you mean. I presume what you mean.
Flash positives. You're right. Well, it says flash positives. Sorry. She does mean false positives, I'm sure. So.
Okay.
Sorry,
yes, you do. And that was sort of deliberate, because you can tweak the model so that it will limit the number of results given to you based on the accuracy of what it thinks is there. We deliberately wanted really as many results as we could. So we did have, there are errors that come up. It produces things that aren't what you're looking for, because there's no interpretation at all. It's a machine. It's a spinning disk somewhere in Luton or somewhere that's actually doing the work. So it's not interpreting the footage at all. It's literally telling you what it thinks is in that picture that you're showing it. And it's not doing anything else other than that. So yeah, you're getting false positives, but the alternative is potential of having false negatives, which is much more dangerous, frankly, because then you're going to miss things that may not be there. And it's very quick to spin through footage within the platform to go from sort of tag to tag to tag and immediately recognize whether that's what you're looking for or not.
Exactly. So speaking of recognizing what you're looking for and taking how much time to do this, the question for India, directed directly at you, about how long did it take to scan 5,000 hours of footage? How many years of your life, if you added up all those hours?
I think we started in late March, maybe, or early April, and we were going until, this is on Linecraft tagging. We were going into maybe end of May, early June, and then we were transitioning on to grey matter. Basically this whole time we were just tagging for like the whole of lockdown, basically, and searching for things.
In that time, they managed to tag a hell of a lot. But when we did the initial harvest in Curio, there were 2,000 hours, and it completed the harvest in, from memory, about 5 days. So
okay.
It's a pretty quick process.
Right. It's good to know, because this is a great case study and good learnings for, not only, for some of the items that you were looking for and the drama, because with any luck, our productions continue, and you are able to send some crews out, socially distant filming, whatever you need to be doing. There's going to redirect over to you, Carrie, just about kind of from a production executive point of view about working with AI and the benefits of integrating this technology into your workflows and the productions that you've got across your portfolio. what in your opinion are the big benefits of how you see AI being integrated into what Arrow is doing now, or potentially everything Arrow does in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, some people may find AI a little bit scary of, is it going to suddenly start replacing people? And I think, what Dan has said is it definitely needs humans in order to teach it and also to run efficiently. For instance, what you don't know is that suddenly we had all these people who weren't getting on planes, and so we had assistant producers on this. We had the runners who didn't have day-to-day running of the office. We had edit producers, and we treated it like it was a massive archive project, essentially, that
Right.
needed managing. And I think what it did is it is another tool that just makes the productions richer.
Right.
Not just when we're limited in what we can film, but even when we can go back to filming normally. I think it's a fantastic resource to have, and it will just make us better, and it will become bigger because we can apply it all the way down the line through post-production, all the deliverables, all of that kind of paperwork. This is an end-to-end system eventually.
Right. And are there other ambitions that you would have for the AI that you've been integrating so far into, like, if lockdown is going to continue another month or another year, are you planning to make sure that it's integrated?
Oh yeah, I think we'll keep going with it for sure. I think we've seen it not as it's not a band-aid, it's an investment.
And Dan, sorry, Dan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say that there is a sort of the reason we were talking to Grey Matter before COVID hit, and to other AI companies and machine learning companies, was to try and bring together the production area, the post-production area, and the media management area into a closer sort of relationship. Because at the moment, there are individual silos of information which are sort of self-contained and locked away from each other, where it makes far more sense for them to be integrated, so that all of that metadata that's generated prior to a camera being turned on isn't then separated when the rushes are created. And so at the moment, if we have a bit of footage, we have release forms and we have location releases and contracts and all that sort of stuff. We wanted to try and build a bridge between those two elements, just to try to streamline the process. And then ultimately, the ideal, the dream, if that's the sort of thing that you dream about, which I do, but it's the dream would be to have someone shooting in a remote location, editing in London, for example, and being able in London to search not for a card name or a clip name or a date or something, but a proper search of, I want a shot of a Zoom call with 5 people on it that I know was shot over the last few days.
The popular production, let me tell you.
Exactly.
Exactly. And we actually thank you, Dan. We actually have a question coming for Kieran. Kieran, did you manage to find all the shots you needed for your gaping holes?
No. Well, again, I want to be careful to say we would never fill holes. So we would only ever source what was needed for that story. Again, filling holes is easy. We could wallpaper over everything and go, there you go. But maintaining that standard is paramount for us. It really was. So yes, there was many times that you'd find what you wanted. You'd find the 5 people on Zoom. Fantastic. You've got that nice establisher, but obviously you need all of the shots that go within that to construct that scene. So you need your tights, your wides. So, and obviously, as similar as an environment might be, obviously that in our case, crimes wouldn't be exact. Unfortunately, a murder is a murder, but someone might have used a gun, and another person might have smacked someone over the head with a banana. So essentially,
That popular Zoom call, right?
yeah, that's very popular in the Zoom calls. But no, so what we'd then need to do is we would then find, once we've constructed that scene, we would see where the actual holes were in terms of the detail that was needed, and then we had a DOP that lived in his home. And then with his wife and actually his son, so he was self-isolated indoors, we would essentially have a director, have an art director, and they would send them props, and we'd get lots of abstract shots that fitted in with that scene. Again, to keep the standard there, to make sure it really did match and it didn't jar on the eye or jar on the storytelling. And so essentially we didn't always have everything there, but we found solutions to find the detail that we need to complete that scene.
Right. Did you feel the pressure? Did you feel pressure to do that, to complete that scene? Or did you think, do you know what, we can just leave that part out? You're just persevere.
I think that's more for the editors and for the directors, but I'm sure there was a constant fear of not being able to complete a scene or complete the show. But they, to their credit, they found ways. And that was the thing with Arrow. We just constantly, we knew throughout all of this crisis, we kept going, we kept finding solutions, but at the same time, don't fluff through it. Let's keep it the standard really high and make sure we're still delivering the same shows that we would, or more or less the same shows as we'd always try to deliver. In fact, try to make it where no one would know that this was a COVID solution, as it was just part of the normal series.
Right. So we're not going to list any shows that you worked on during COVID and be able to use the AI, and it'll be seamless across the board. And
we would hope so. We would hope so. Yeah,
yes.
I'm sure.
Unless you'd like to reveal, and then we could play Easter egg hunt
Yeah.
with everybody watching here and just try to find if there is anything to try to bust you. But I'm sure that'll be impossible.
Maybe it'd be a game. Maybe if you can
living up to the high
Arrow
standards that Arrow
there,
Media produces, 100%.
You can come and tell us. Yeah.
Exactly. We've got some more questions pouring in, and maybe this is something for Carrie. Were any staff reluctant? Carrie and Dan, were any staff reluctant to use AI or putting up old school barriers?
Well, no, because we told them they had to use it. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. No, there was a general. I think the people that were primarily using it were the people that had seen the task and so knew,
right,
what was in front of them. It was
right,
the task force that Carrie brought together with India and her team and colleagues. They could see that there was a mountain of footage to get through, and so they well, I'm putting words in India's mouth, but hopefully she was glad to see it as an aid to her work.
100% top up that CV, girl, because the AI will come and find you no matter what, I'm sure. So, and I guess back over to you, India. Like, was it more stressful? Question coming in from the fans: was it more stressful to use AI, or with that not to use AI? Was there ever a point where you're going, right, this is stressing me out, I want to go back to logging rather than searching for footage?
I think it worked well because we've used both of them, and we got to know the footage through tagging it and through watching all these clips. And then we went to Carew, and it was a lot easier to find things just because we knew, oh, I know this exists, I'll be able to find it somehow, or I know other things are like this. I can go back to Limecraft and look at what else is on this card if I found something on Carew. So the two just worked really well together.
So nice hybrid techniques of mixing and matching man and machine, human and machine, woman and machine, everything to go with it. Did you find that, I guess kind of a group question about, you did have this hybrid process and you're able to kind of use this during this sudden transition, and our lives are disrupted, our workflows are disrupted, production's disrupted, trickled down the chain and the supply chain. But did you still find yourself needing to check manually? Open to the floor.
Well, I didn't, because we sort of knew that there was that what we had was what there was, and there was no way to check manually effectively. you could have spent weeks literally going through that. And I'm not exaggerating when we're talking about thousands of hours. It was genuinely thousands of hours.
I've got 5,000 hours in my notes, so better than that.
It's probably more than that if you include stuff that we realized that we wouldn't be able to use. But
right.
There wasn't really any desire to manually check. There was, as India sort of hinted at, there's if she was searching for something in Curio and it didn't appear, she would have a knowledge of the footage from the manual tagging that she'd done that this shot should exist somewhere, and was able to finesse the search to do that. So in terms of manual backup, that was more a case of finessing searches rather than going back to square one and going through cards of footage.
I think within the edits, what was great in terms of having this search function is what obviously you would do is, because even though we had all these edits working remotely, we still worked within the Arrow Nexus space of the shared storage, so people would remote in, and that we'd identify through Curio and with India and the team, we'd identify a situation. We'd then get that into the edit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the editor for that show is particularly going to need that. So, and the thing is as well, we'd identify a scene, and then, as I was saying before, we would capture everything that was shot around that scene. So, because there still might be many rushes and takes that were not used or that we haven't searched for, but that was relevant to that particular situation. And then obviously you put that into the Avid, and an editor would sort of just scrum through on his timeline and very quickly be able to see if he needs it or not. Now, from that sort of manual process, because we very quickly could identify through grey matter a bunch of rushes, later down the line another edit might come along and they say, oh, we need this type of thing, and then India might have pulled this out before, so all of a sudden it's like, oh, do you know what, we've captured so much stuff now. So it wasn't just searching our archival database. We actually started creating an Avid database of rushes. So it really quickly helped us create a relevant Avid sort of series library that the editors could get into at any moment they want and go through and quickly see if anything was relevant to them there. So there was those type of manual process in the edit, but obviously that was after the AI had sort of brought us those treats, as it was.
Exactly, those treats. You're always going to call it that from now on, I promise you. We've got another question come in from one of our viewers about, can the system, kind of going off from what you just described, Karen, can the system be taught when it gets something wrong not to do it again? Naughty AI.
Yeah, I think Dan's well placed for this one.
Yeah,
over to you, Dan.
The database itself becomes more effective as it gets used more, because it's one button push to delete a tag, and if you want to add a tag, then it's just typing an enter. So updating those tags means that, say for example, we produced you got a wrong search. You searched for a gun and you got a knife. Well, you just one button gets rid of the knife return, and so that the next person that searches for gun doesn't get that false positive coming up. The question more specifically about how to repeat. If you repeated the analysis, would it then not recognize it as recognize that knife as a gun? To be honest with you, we haven't analyzed anything twice because they didn't see much point, because we could deal with the level of false positives we were getting.
Right.
But
you had a bit of time on your hands, right?
Well, yeah, when we got more time, then we'll play around with it some more. But I know that specifically on facial recognition, then the answer is yes. You can teach it a face, and you can exclude faces from it, and teach it to recognize individuals within your footage.
Right. So the answer is yes.
Yes, to a certain extent, but our experience is a bit limited on that front.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is a try and error. It's a case study, like what we said now is if we met 1 year from now, which we could, does your months and months instead of days turn into you need days instead of hours or minutes or things like that too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Carrie, we've got some other questions coming in about budgets and costs. What do you reckon the size of company, what size of company do you need to be to afford AI? Thank you, caller line 1.
Wow. Okay. I knew there'd be a money question.
Why not? I'm turning the production exec.
Yeah. I mean, I won't go into details of cost specifically, and I think it's a case by case basis. I mean, this is a very unique situation where we were suddenly thrust into needing a system that would help us because the clock was running, and we still needed to deliver because more than ever, because broadcasters had lost hours from other people. So we were determined to do it. So you really have to weigh up the costs of not delivering shows versus this. And I guess more long term, you could look at it in a way of, do you gain filming days? Do you save on filming days? Because suddenly people have this library of footage to look at and they're suddenly not needing to go. So it's difficult to say you need to be this size, you need productions and budgets of this size. It's something that was unique to this situation, and we decided it was worth the investment.
And as far as like the size of company that you would need to be, I suppose you don't need to reveal, your relationship, obviously money-wise with your suppliers and vendors, but would you say, could a small startup be affording a system like this?
I don't think that because the huge advantage we had is we had the hours of footage to utilize. So, as a startup, you wouldn't have the media to use, so it probably wouldn't be worth the investment. So as well as size, I think you need some sort of track record of a bank of footage that you've built up.
And you'd probably need enough resources, 15 Indias to kind of help you.
I think
one powerful India.
I think we were about four at our top, so it wasn't a huge team, but that was all they were doing.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that. Dan, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm by no means a champion of AI in any stretch of the imagination, but if you approach it as having a problem and then finding a solution to the problem, then you look for the best solutions to those problems. And it doesn't matter what size of company you are. There is the possibility of using this technology to make your processes better if you have an aim in mind. I mean, I'd encourage anyone to get in touch with Grey Meta or whoever and talk to people about it, because there's things that we didn't realize we may have an application for before we actually started using it in anger.
Right.
And it's the case of the more you use these things, the more applications crop up for them.
Sure. And a lot of companies now will offer a couple months free trial to demo platforms and products nowadays. So I suppose
a lot of them. I would like to speak for Grey Meta on that.
No, I'm not saying Grey Meta. Just so the viewers know, you need to do your own research and look into these things and read the terms and conditions very carefully. Thank you very much. A couple production-y type of questions coming in. And feel free to jump in anytime, but I'm looking right into your eyes, Kieran. I'm sure you can feel the burn.
Yeah, I feel it coming in.
How does the footage get from the AI system Carew into Avid?
So that would be a manual task. As we were saying earlier, for many years now, we've been very sort of taking great pride in having a very organised system and library at Arrow. So essentially everything remains consistent from our card names, the clip names. So effectively, it doesn't matter whether it's on Limecraft in the cloud or all these rushes that are being scanned in Grey Meta. Effectively, the card names are saying, then they'll come to us, to our library system. We'd either go to drives and go to our library and be able to pull them straight from drives, or sometimes they might be on LTO. So we just restore the LTO footage back onto drives and then transcode it back into the Avid again.
I hope that answers your question, anonymous caller. Another question for India. Will you be betting on getting a bonus this year? Thought I'd throw that in. You're with your executives and your bosses. You may.
This is the bonus.
Throw it out now.
Here is the bonus.
Yeah, let's kind of talk a little bit now, integrating all of this conversation about some of the limitations that came up and preparing yourself for that next phase of AI and Aero media, because I'm getting a hunch you're going to be using this technology for quite some time. Who would like to jump in first?
I will, because
I'm looking at you,
the
Dan.
basic. Oh, yeah, good. I mean, essentially, the primary limitation is that it isn't India. You know, it's not as good as a human logger. You are going to get errors. You're going to get, and you are going to get, as the questioner asked earlier on, you are going to get a number of false positives.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain amount of sort of triaging that has to go on in terms of, one, what you want to get analysed, and two, what you want to deliver to the edit. And so there's that sort of interaction that has to go through. There are ways to sort of mitigate those limitations, but ultimately, you know, a thousand Indias sitting in a room is a better option for the end results. But there aren't 1,000 Indias. There's only one India. So there's an answer. That's the answer to the question ultimately. And there are things that are sort of just irritations that are there in terms of, you know, depending on the tools that you're using, are they using US syntax or European syntax? Is it COLOR or COLOUR into your search term? So there's things like that you need to be aware of when you start that searching process. If you're looking for
limited camera metadata, perhaps as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly a takeaway that we've learned, is that all those weird fields of metadata that used to come back from the cameras, which we, you know, Kieran and I used to sort of slightly sneer at and ignore, we now realise that they're actually very useful if in the right environment, we're given the right tools. And so that's something that we would take away, is to make sure that those metadata fields are, one, that they're set to be on the camera, and two, that they're set correctly in the camera, because it does have some valuable information that can be interrogated by, not only by Curio, but by other media management systems.
Perfect. And questions flowing in for you, India, honey. Let's start off with what did you wish this AI could do? Was there anything that could kind of go into that? And also, were you working from home?
Yes, I was working from home. What I wish the AI could do? I think the lookalikes thing was a big thing when we were looking on one of our shows, when we were scrubbing through footage initially and just looking for lookalikes. That was very time consuming and very, I don't know, just frustrating, not being able to find people that look like these people.
Right.
But then Grey Matter does have a feature that allows for that kind of thing, but unfortunately we didn't actually have to look for lookalikes anymore. So, but I think in the future, using that feature and having that sort of software to be able to do that is really useful.
I'll let you have a think. We can come back to you, don't worry. And you can also chuck it into the YouTube channel chat if you want to after this. No pressure at all. There was a question that came in from another viewer about, would you recommend that a startup should start to organize and digitize all their rushes? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah,
definitely. Carrie's profusely nodding. Let's go around the table. Why, Carrie?
I mean, I think Dan's already touched on the we had a great starting position. You know, if we had to go back and pull things in and digitize from scratch, we would probably be a month or two behind where we are now.
We would not be having this panel today. But maybe
very possibly, yeah. So I think it's, yeah, it was a huge help.
I think that there's fundamentally all of these systems, any tool that you will want to use from now until doomsday will be a digital tool of some sort. And if you don't have the footage at least available to you, then you're not going to be able to use those tools. And if you can't find your footage to any degree of granularity, then you're also going to be majorly disadvantaged. And I think if there's
future-proofing your productions and your business from the start, really, rather than waiting till things get dusty on a shelf somewhere.
It all comes down to the fact that if you've got one production, you're running one production and you're shooting it and you're editing it, you probably know that footage backwards, far better than any artificial intelligence system is going to know or anything like that.
Indeed.
When you've got 70 hours of finished programming, each of which has 120 hours of rushes for it, then if you haven't got any sort of organization or you've not got a structured library system, then you're either going to lose footage or not realize that you've got footage, which is essentially two sides of the same coin, I think.
And definitely, and people move on as well. So, it's people that know the footage this year, in 2 years' time when you need it, they might not be around. So it needs to be something that people that start a company can jump straight into and search for years worth of data.
Exactly. And Kieran, I'm going to stick with you, my friend, because a question from one of the viewers, did some edit suites strip out the metadata? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Not that I know of. And if they did, that's how I'm dealing with it. Yeah. But no, so I don't. If
not
they're watching, no, I don't know. The editors wouldn't tend to mess with metadata. They're not interested in sort of in deleting any of that information. That they've got the shots that they need and they can tell the story they want to tell. They're happy. They wouldn't and shouldn't meddle really with that sort of stuff. I trust they wouldn't.
So that's a you hope not answer.
I hope not.
You hope
not that I know of.
Not that you're aware of.
Yeah, it hasn't caused us any issues
RTS
yet.
Fan Club.
But yeah.
Yeah, as we're kind of winding down this session, let's go straight into the lessons that you've learned from this, and what are the key takeaways that we could share with our industry and with everybody watching today. I'm going to go to you first, Carrie, and then over to Dan.
I think just don't stop. I don't think at any point we put our hands up and went, it's too much, it's too big. We just pause everything until we can film what we need to film to finish the shows. I mean, we threw everything at it, including this artificial intelligence. And, as you said, a DOP filming in his kitchen, you just have to keep going.
Excellent. And we're very glad that you did. A big key lessons learned from you, Dan.
Well, I think there's the technical ones of the camera metadata that we've already covered, and the digitization and organization that we've already covered. Yeah. But also there's the sort of expectation management of the whole process is quite important, and that nothing's going to be perfect. Nothing's going to be the brilliant catch-all solution, but if you're relatively open-minded about the results, and you're realistic in what your expectations are, then the results can usually exceed your expectations. And this is, as we keep saying, it's just a tool. It's just another tool to be used in the process. Ultimately, nobody really cares what the tools we were used, as long as you're delivering a good program on time, and
as long as it look good.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what about you, India? the biggest learning that you got out of kind of using AI as a tool in a sentence is fine.
I think just using new software was really great, especially as a runner and being thrust into these situations. It's just good to get out of my comfort zone and trying something and having to work to deadlines. And yeah, it's really great to be part of a team that working with this new software and just being the first in the company to do so.
Which is brilliant, and it sounds like you've done an amazing job. So definitely keep up the great work. And kind of final lessons learned from you, Karen. Integrated with it, will you be using AI in drone shots?
Yeah, I mean, these guys have summed it up really. I mean, I mean, the thing that I've learned is just embrace, be brave. If it's a solution that you feel like it's going to really bring value to what you're trying to, the problem you're trying to solve, go for it. And AI really has helped us in these early days, and I can see it helping us more and more within the future if we treat it right. And as Dan was saying, we prep it correctly, do the metadata correctly, then I can see it being a real useful tool. But yeah, being brave basically, and going for the solutions that feel like the right thing to do.
Right. Are there any other additional checklists that people can be taken away here, as if we're like doing a mini R&D white paper in a couple paragraphs? Is there anything else to add from you, Dan?
Well, I think it's as I was saying before, that it is just a tool, and there's many other flavors of that tool, but just don't be intimidated by it. I think there's a feeling that it's robots coming to take over the world. It really isn't. It's I'm old, so I remember growing up knowing that in the 70s, we were told that we'd all be living the life of Riley and having robots clean the dishes and stuff. But actually, the result was dishwashers, and so it's that sort of level of automation is what we're talking about. It's not going to replace jobs. It's going to make jobs more productive and hopefully more rewarding ultimately.
Exactly. So the kind of final one of the bottom line is that there's really nothing better than a human. But just taking the time to learn how these things are done and kind of prepping a little bit earlier. We hope the lockdown does end soon. We're able to kind of continue with our productions and continue, the remote, perfecting the art of the remote collaboration is going to be only going to get better and hopefully improve, but nothing like being on set and shooting and having a stale sandwich for catering, right? Key takeaways there.
Exactly.
One last final question's come in. Does the AI get a credit at the end credits? I think this is a Carrie question, but whoever wants to jump in first.
As far as I'm aware, not at the moment.
You gotta give it a name. AI.
Yeah.
I think it's got a name, but it's a trademark, so we won't use it. We won't say it.
Well, there we go. Hopefully, robots not taking over the world, but the humans working. So we're going to wrap things up, and we just want to thank the Royal Television Society. We want to thank everyone at Arrow that joined us today: India, Daniel, Kieran, and Carrie. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights. That will be fantastic learnings for everyone working in production and everyone that's maybe never heard of these types of techniques and learnings going forward. And it's good that we can all kind of take these away and just kind of continue talking about it and working together. A quick plug on an upcoming RTS event, which is going to be the 14th of October, whereby, oh yes, there we go. Nice little slide here. That is going to be one of my little pet projects, the IBC Accelerator Program. So IBC is the International Broadcasting Convention. Been going about 55 years, normally in Amsterdam, but we are doing virtual showcases this year. The Accelerator Program brought together champions who are the major media companies, broadcasters, who throw out challenges and invite an open call to participants who are vendors and suppliers to take part in coming up with some proof of concept solutions. And these are going to be the results of some of these IBC accelerators. Again, 2 AI projects in content moderation and AI used for shot listing. that we're going to be chatting about here. So please tune in Wednesday, October 14th, 6:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. By that time, October comes in. And once again, remember, you can watch this back on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe and like and comment wherever you see fit at RTS_London and the hashtag RTSAI. Thank you very much again, Royal Television Society, RTS. My name is Muki Callahan, and we'll see you.